Thanks for watching Nile TV International, and we are continuing our coverage of the US election 2020. America votes and the whole world waits. Well, it has been the most divisive presidential elections in decades and marking one of the most important US presidential elections in history, and making headlines throughout. Trump and Biden has been pictured throughout the whole years. Well, tonight we'll be shedding more light on more than 7 decades of personal and professional experience behind them both, Donald Trump and Joe Biden, and also more concerning 75 years for the United Nations. What's next? How about the years to come? We're always honored to have with us Ms. Simone Salem. She's the regional support advisor at the UN AIDS MENA region, and Mrs. Salem is going to help us read the 2 important headlines in the news. As I've said, Simone, that this is considered to be one of the most important presidential elections in US history. So it's a big moment for America, a clarifying moment for the United States.
I think it's a clarifying moment for the United States and for the whole world. It's something that's going to be affecting the whole, world in terms of political change. We are facing a lot of changes currently because of the, this COVID pandemic. When it came, it really made things different for all the world. How we are looking at one another, how we are looking at globalization. Multilateralism, it's becoming a very big issue, and I think this election is showing the world that we are one. So whatever is happening in the US is really going to be impacting the whole world, and this is why we're all waiting as much as I think all the US citizens in anticipation to see what's going to happen.
Yes, well, we're talking about a US election which is considered to be one of the most consequential ones in the US history, a striking difference between what Trump and Biden may mean for America as well as what they may mean for the whole world. So definitely a different outlook, different perspective.
Different outlook. Of course, we're talking about 2 sectors, 2 parties, Republicans and Democrats, and it's always been like this for years of the election. And I think people, the whole point of being so close in the race so far is that for the first time, I think the Americans are really standing their ground. So whoever wants to see the picture from the prospect of Trump is standing his ground, same as for Biden, and the difference is really going to be very tough on the other party. So this is why I'm not sure how it will end, but the difference is going to be very, very much I think appreciated by all the people who understand politics, to know that we will see some change in the next few years in the politics of the US. How this will be impacting the whole world, we are yet to know. But the 2 characters are very, very different. Even when we see the debates, it's quite impressive how they are.
Yeah, usually psychologists are always analyzing the posture, the way of dealing, how they are addressing the attendees in the different debates. Yeah, how do you see that?
I see them both very confident, maybe a little bit extravagant in their language. We're not used to that, but we became used to this kind of debate since the previous elections, because Trump is usually very vocal in his attitude and his language. But I think Biden as well. I mean, it was very easy to get both of them enraged. It was very easy for them to lose their temper, and I think it shows some kind of transparency. You see what you see is what you get in a way.
Yeah.
And sometimes this is we may not appreciate it because of the cultural point of view that we should not see a president, speaking like this to someone else. But I think it just shows how they are very open to criticism, and they are really confident of what they want to stand for and the programs which are very different from one another.
Yes. The US election 2020 gave a chance to portray both Trump and Biden, how they are pictured throughout the whole years. And those are the upcoming highlights. Trump 74 and Biden 77 each have more than 7 decades of personal as well as professional experience behind them. Trump, born in the wake of the World War II in June 1946, Donald John Trump, was the 4th child of New York real estate tycoon Fred Trump and Mary Ann. And despite of the family's wealth, he was doing many jobs within his father's company and was sent to a military academy at the age of 13, attending the University of Pennsylvania and becoming the favorite to succeed his father in the family business after his older brother Fred had opted to become a pilot. So we do have more here concerning the two contenders, actually. As for Joe Biden, Biden was born in Pennsylvania in 1942, was the first of 4 children in an Irish-American Catholic family and attended the University of Delaware, and he studied law at a law school. And Biden famously took the oath of office for his first term as a Democratic Party senior back, and he shot at the presidency in 2008 before dropping out, but while his campaign had failed to break through. Well, we have more concerning the election campaign, the posture of the two candidates, and we were talking about the personality traits and what the people saw through the different debates between both that had shown more signals about how would be their style in the upcoming era.
We know Trump. You know, we already experienced Trump, so we know what we are expecting to see if Trump wins, and it's always this a very honest, maybe a little bit vocal, let's say, attitude of voicing his opinion, but Trump has always been very straightforward. I call it, again, what you see is what you get. He stands his ground. He's kind of, you know, the confidence he speaks with makes whatever he says plausible, and I think he also his strict beliefs and the way the Republicans have always been leading the country has shown in his attitude and in his speech and even in the debates that has happened. Although I think at some point his confidence failed, because he also understood that Biden is not going to be he's a fierce opponent.
An easy prey.
And an easy prey. And also I think people, I was in the US a couple of months ago, and I've seen some of the protests happening, and people are so much divided because both of them, I think the US needs both at this time of their juncture in the politics of the country. So whoever wins is going to be making a change that is needed at the country. I think it's not. It's a healthy. If the change happens, it's going to be a healthy change. If it doesn't happen, I think Trump is also not going to be continuing as before. He might be doing a lot of changes in his way of ruling the country, or setting the world the new targets for the U.S. for the next 4 years to come. Biden, I see him. He's coming with his very open, you know. Wants to include everybody, the diversity component in his speeches, willing to give more opportunities for the migrants, for those who are marginalized. This is also appealing to the U.S. and to the world in a way, because it's a language that we all like to hear. But end of the day, they are all promises, and we don't know what's going to happen. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how each of them, if one of them, whoever wins, is going to be walking the talk in the next 4 years.
Yes. Well, striking difference between what Trump and Biden may mean for America and for the whole world. That's why when we say when America votes, we find the whole world still waits with anticipation.
We've seen that happening. It's nothing new. Usually, the president of the U.S. is a historical figure that affects the whole world. The politics, the
Yes.
The way they the way the country is moving forward, whatever decisions are taken, whatever political notions are being portrayed in the U.S., it's always impacting the whole world, because now with the globalization, we're seeing we're all connected in a way. So if a change in the political ruling of the U.S. from one end to the extreme end, definitely it's going to be affecting the Middle East. It's going to be affecting Europe. It's going to be affecting the whole world.
Yes.
Even the politics that has been, we've seen some, and the how do you call it, the negotiations that were happening with North Korea, with Iran, with all of this is going to change. To what extent it's going to be better for the Middle East, we also need to think for ourselves how this is going to be impacting us in this region.
Yes, and definitely the challenges for the upcoming president is going to differ from the past era. I mean, the challenges in the first 100 days for America's president
he needs to prove himself. I think
going to be very challenging.
Very much prove himself, because the whole world is watching. Being so close in the race makes people very anticipating a change, and they would want to see him. Okay, you won, then you might as well show us with this little, it's going to be very little, I'd guess, the difference between the two. Whoever wins needs to prove how he won this election and the merit he deserves to have won that race.
Yes. Simone, we are talking about the beat at the United States and on the street, and definitely you met many of your American friends. What is there on their list of priorities? What do they need from the upcoming U.S. president?
I think it's all related. If you go back to the history of the UN, when it started after World War II, because people really wanted peace and stability and security. So I guess this is exactly what the UN is looking for. The president of the US is a very important figure for the UN, So for the UN agencies, and especially particularly in this 75 years, when we're looking back at all the achievements and where we want to go from there, we call it the UN, we would want to see the future. I think the US president is going to be shaping a lot of that. Where do we want to go with the SDGs, with the Sustainable Development Goals? Where do we want to go with security and peace treaties that have been kept and unkept? Now everybody wants to do what they want to do. Each country, if they want to do whatever, we try to maintain the security and the peace, and see that people are listening to the Security Council. But sometimes you don't see this happening, and people suffer, and we see lots of aggressions happening at a global level. So I think what the United States will bring to the world in terms of wishful thinking for stability, more organized development work, how to go forward with crises that we are seeing around the world, the refugee crisis, the climate change crisis. I mean, we need to be working together now. It's only 10 years to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. So that president has a lot to do in that area.
Yes, definitely lots of challenges and more to come. It has been historic, and throughout history, the different presidents of the United States had a role to play. This is one of the most divisive presidential elections in decades. Short break, we'll be back. Well, the U.S. election is the world's election as much as it is America's election, and all eyes, the whole world is watching, definitely an impact also on the economic situation, as you've said, for the UN, a priority to see how the challenges and how the goals also are going to be implemented.
Exactly. You know, if we heard Trump, for example, a few months back saying, I'm cutting off funds for the WHO, the World Health Organization. This has been very major for the UN. But I guess it's more than funding. It's really the political trend. Because the funding, of course, stands a very, very big component of the work of the UN. It's basically how we function. But again, as well, I think it's the political push. How we want to go, where do we want to go with, like I said, with the peace, with the security, with the stability in the world. I think the pandemic that we've passed for the last few months or the last year now, has shown us that we need to be working more into like a transformative culture of change for everybody, not just for the UN. I think all the leaders, the political leaders, need to think clearly how they want to reorganize themselves in terms of their politics as well as their participation in the global change for the whole world, the advancement of the whole globe. So yes, definitely, I agree. It is going to be impacting the work of the UN for the coming. When we look up to a more, how do you say it, aggressive progress in the achievements of the sustainable goals, because we don't have much time, unfortunately.
Yes, well, more than 90 million Americans have actually voted, early of them by posting a record-breaking voting surge driven by COVID-19. And it is an extraordinary, actually, presidential elections in the U.S. history. Let's follow.
The President of the United States is indirectly elected to a 4-year term by the people through the Electoral College. The office holder leads the executive branch of the federal government and is the Commander-in-Chief of the United States Armed Forces. Since the office was established in 1789, 44 men have served as president. George Washington was a political leader, military general, statesman, and founding father, who served as the first president of the United States from 1789 to 1797. Previously, he led patriot forces to victory in the nation's war for independence. He presided at the Constitutional Convention of 1787, which established the U.S. Constitution and a federal government. Washington has been called the father of his country for his manifold leadership in the formative days of the new nation. Abraham Lincoln was a statesman and lawyer who served as the 16th President of the United States from 1861 to 1865. Lincoln led the nation through the American Civil War, the country's greatest moral, constitutional, and political crisis. He succeeded in preserving the Union, abolishing slavery, bolstering the federal government, and modernizing the U.S. economy. Theodore Roosevelt, often referred to as Teddy Roosevelt or his initials TR, was a statesman, conservationist, naturalist, historian, and writer who served as the 26th President of the United States from 1901 to 1909. He previously served as the 33rd Governor of New York from 1899 to 1900 and the 25th Vice President of the United States from March to September 1901. Roosevelt emerged as a leader of the Republican Party and became a driving force for the antitrust policy while supporting progressive-era policies in the early 20th century. He was the first American to win the Nobel Peace Prize. Dwight D. Eisenhower was a politician and soldier who served as the 34th President of the United States from 1953 to 1961. During World War II, he became a 5-star general in the Army who served as Supreme Commander of the Allied Expeditionary Force in Europe. He started highway system, ended the Korean War with a ceasefire. John F. Kennedy, often referred to by his initials JFK and Jack, was an American politician who served as the 35th President of the United States from January 1961 until his assassination in November 1963. Kennedy served at the height of the Cold War, and the majority of his work as president concerned relations with the Soviet Union and Cuba. A Democrat, Kennedy represented Massachusetts in the U.S. House of Representatives and Senate prior to becoming president. Jimmy Carter is a politician, philanthropist, and former farmer who served as the 39th President of the United States from 1977 to 1981. A member of the Democratic Party, he previously served as a Georgia state senator from 1963 to 1967, and as the 76th governor of Georgia from 1971 to 1975. Since leaving the presidency, Carter has remained engaged in political and social projects as a private citizen. In 2002, he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for his work in co-founding the Carter Center. George H.W. Bush was a politician, diplomat, and businessman who served as the 41st President of the United States from 1989 to 1993. A member of the Republican Party, Bush also served as the 43rd Vice President from 1981 to 1989 in the U.S. House of Representatives, as U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, and as Director of the Central Intelligence. George W. Bush is a politician and businessman who served as the 43rd President of the United States from 2001 to 2009. A member of the Republican Party, he had previously served as the 46th Governor of Texas from 1995 to 2000. His presidency marked by 9/11, War on Terror, the subsequent invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan. Barack Obama is a politician and attorney who served as the 44th President of the United States from 2009 to 2017. A member of the Democratic Party, Obama was the first African-American President of the United States.
Half conceals, half discloses. Now it catches the...
And highlighting the major story, America votes and the world waits. We are always having the honor of having with us His Excellency Ambassador Mohammad Al-Arabi, former Minister of Foreign Affairs. Your Excellency, as we follow up the most divisive presidential elections in decades, how do you see it? How do you see it, Ambassador, and the striking difference between what Trump and Biden may mean for America and the world?
Well, let us say that we are witnessing, a very unique election. For the first time, I guess, the people of the whole world actually waiting for the results. And maybe also it is unprecedented, voters went to the polls for this election. In the meantime, also unprecedented money actually was collecting from the two candidates to support their campaign.
Yes.
So we are in a very, I would say, awkward situation now, and I think President Trump yesterday he was trying to pave the way that the Supreme Court maybe will intervene in order to guarantee his to win the election.
Yeah.
So he was trying to pave the way for the the interference of the Supreme Court in order to have a clear result for this election.
Yes.
So everything in this election actually is new, and we didn't see anything like this, and that's why maybe we will wait till Friday to have a clear results and tangible results for this election.
Yes.
Maybe some people were talking about the end of the era of the United States, but I think the election and what's going on and the environment which is waiting for the results, I think it is a real proof that still in the era of the United States, it's still the I would say the only superpower in the world, and that's why people is trying to follow up what's going on closely. And I think the results will affect everybody, from beginning of the people of the United States themselves to the outside world. Many nations will be affected by the man who will sit in the White House for the next 4 years. So it is a very important event. Maybe you can see that all the TV channels actually is devoting the whole time to follow what's going on there. And even here in Egypt, I think this is the top story for everybody. Even in the houses, everybody's waiting to see what's going on. So it is an important event, and it proves that the United States is still on the lead and still the first country which has a sort of impact on everything in the world.
Yes. Your Excellency, talking about the challenges and the most important files that are there before the new U.S. president.
Well, I think of course, the American election is always, focused on the issues, the internal issues. I mean, the taxes, the healthcare, the unemployment, all these, issues. So the people of the United States, of course, this is a main concern. I mean, they don't care about what's going on in the Middle East or in China or whatever. So I think the internal issues will be the first files for the new president to open and to try to tackle. And after that, maybe the relationship with the Russia and Europe, and also the trade with China and the file of the trade with China. So I think he will be extremely busy, and that's why I think important files starting from the internal issues to the outside world. I think that's why the first 100 years, the first 100 days of his presidency, I think it will be very important, and it will give him a real power if he will succeed to tackle many issues.
Yes, definitely. Talking about the future and the impact on America's role in the world and how this divisive U.S. elections is going to reshape this outlook.
The United States is everywhere. I mean, it always has a sort of impact and influence on many issues, starting from the climate change to the race of the disarmament to the conflicts everywhere. They are always, ready to deploy troops everywhere if there is a need for that. So it is a country which has a sort of, influence on many issues. Even this COVID-19, I think if they will succeed to find the real remedy for this COVID-19, I think this will also give them a sort of impetus in the world. With a big economy, influence on the trade of the trade in the world, and challenging, the emerging countries like Russia and China. So actually, this is the fact that this country is everywhere and has a sort of impact on many issues for maybe the majority of the population of the earth. They are, affected by the United States and its influence and its power. So it is an important country, and that we have to admit, and we have to say to accept that, and we have to live with this fact.
Excellency, Ambassador Mohammed Al-Arabi, Egypt's former Minister of Foreign Affairs, thank you so much, Excellency, for your valuable input. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we're still analyzing the U.S. election 2020 and how it is going to have an impact on the whole world. As His Excellency has mentioned, when America votes, the world waits and watches, and it definitely affects not only the political level but also the economic level for the UN concerning the challenges and the files, as you've mentioned, more than one important file. Talking about urgent solutions for urgent times. And during COVID-19, and I guess that the result of the election is going to be reshaped by the COVID story. What do you think?
I think it is going to be definitely, everybody's saying this and everybody believes in it. I think it's going to be making a lot of impact on how we are going to be looking at the global economic forum
outlook.
Yes. Not just for the UN, but like I said, for all the global of the leaders of the world. This COVID had really hit everybody hard where it hurts. We saw countries that have the whole establishments have been shaken. Countries we never expected to go down, they went down because of that pandemic, and it just taught us a lesson that we all need to be thinking beyond what we have. We need to expand. We need to think, like you said, of innovative solutions. What is really going to be working in the future may not, be what we have been working with for the last decade, and so
unconventional solutions.
Yes, unconventional solutions. So the next decade, 10 years, are going to be very critical for the whole world, not just for the U.S. I mean, it's we have put some goals, what we call them sustainable development goals, and we need to see how we want to be there. The COVID-19, as we see it, it has shown that we might be going on with this for a few years. It might disappear. It might be it's a normal flu that we will have to think of. We have viruses that have lasted for 30 years. We have the HIV virus. I can speak for that. And we don't have a vaccine and we don't have a cure. So it's not really, people are always looking for, we want to have the COVID vaccine, we want to have the COVID cure. I think it's more like how we want to handle it, how we want to live with that, and make sure that we are doing the best for our the global world, globally, how we are going to be working with the countries. But again, the US, the elections, we're going to be seeing where it's going to be landing with this COVID, whether it is, like we said, it is something that will end, or it's going to be a real thing we will have to live with for the next few years.
Yes, a lot of issues are actually shaping the outcome of the US presidential elections. Short break, we'll be back.
Uncertainty about the outcome of the race has weighed on share prices in recent weeks, adding to wider economic concerns. But investors are hoping a clear winner will push Washington to refocus attention on passing economic aid to address the pandemic. All three major U.S. indexes closed higher, with the Dow up more than 2%. The wider S&P 500 rose 1.7%, while the Nasdaq climbed almost 1.9%. Earlier, European and Asian markets also advanced, with the London's FTSE 100 rising 2.3%, the biggest one-day rise in nearly 2 months. Over the longer term, however, concerns about the costs and possibility of other policy changes could then bear down on prices. Wall Street analysts said they expect stocks to rally on the prospects of a material fiscal stimulus package, but they do not want to stick around for the bill. They warned that other scenarios could lead to a short sell-off, including if Mr. Biden wins and Republicans maintain control of the Senate, or if Mr. Trump wins and the balance of power in Congress remains unchanged. They added that shares, however, are likely to recover, as such a gridlock might mean a more stable policy environment. In 2016, Mr. Trump's surprise victory shocked markets and led to a dramatic sell-off in future markets. But share prices soon rallied on the prospect of changes he had promised, including tax cuts. The S&P 500, which tracks some of the biggest publicly listed companies in the US, is up about 55% since his 2016 win, despite falling sharply earlier this year at the onset of the pandemic. The potential for a protracted contest following Tuesday's US election means European markets may face a more volatile aftermath than in previous presidential races. In 2016, the shock of President Donald Trump's victory sent European stocks south on the night, but the pan-European Stoxx 600 quickly shook it off and began a gradual incline which lasted around 6 months.
Well, a very important headline has been also the year 2020 marking the 75th anniversary of the UN and its founding charter. And since Ms. Simone is with us in her capacity as Regional Support Advisor, the UN AIDS MENA region, we'll be asking her more concerning the memories, like milestone years. In those 75 years, a lot has been achieved.
Definitely. I think the whole point of the UN, when you look back, it's a global efforts of many countries coming together, deciding that they want to put all their funding, their money, their collaboration to change the world. And I think what we have done over the 75 years have been really, really amazing. We've seen the UN standing their ground, with especially with the Security Council, when lots of crises happened in the world. We've seen the war of Iraq and Kuwait. We've seen the war on Vietnam. We've seen lots of things where the UN Secretary General came in and said enough is enough, and this is where it ended lots of things on the let's say the security and stability arena. We see it also happening in the humanitarian crisis when lots of crisis has happened. We saw how the UN came into rescue and relief for the people who are involved. And this is, we are seeing it now, like we were seeing it recently with the Syrian crisis. Although some people might say it's not enough, but they don't know what's happening on the ground with many of the UN agencies that are working with these portfolios. The food crisis, the climate change. I mean, some of the advocacy, most of the advocacy agenda has been handled by the UN agencies, how they have been speaking in general assemblies and calling for, come on, you have to save the world. This is our continent, and this is where we need to be working all together to make sure we don't go and find ourselves after 10 years with really no world to be living in. The gender inequality. I mean, this is again another very important portfolio that we've seen the UN putting their ground in many years and saying that enough is enough for the women, they have to be empowered. And where we are now with this agenda of the Sustainable Development Goals, like that what we were set 5 years back, and we are saying that they will end in 2030, it's the work of the UN. What also I've seen the UN really working on over the last 75 years is bringing people in the whole picture. It's not anymore countries and global action, it's more the communities, it's more the people who matters, what we call leaving no one behind. If these organizations have not been really working closely together and trying to make sure no country is left behind and no people from the community, marginalized groups are left behind. It's a whole beautiful how do you call it, continuum of care and support provided by these organizations together, of course with the Secretary General leading and we have had amazing Secretary Generals, by the way,
yes,
coming. We had, of course, who would forget the Egyptian, our hero, Boutros Ghali, and I think also Kofi Annan. We had so many people who really gave from their time and their effort, and the change they have made is something that we all need to stand and recognize, that brought a lot of advancement to the world that we see now.
Yeah.
It's really maybe people are not seeing this enough, maybe in our region in particular, but globally it's really commemorized often, and it's important to know that this establishment is serving the world and really making such a huge difference.
Yes, usually 75 years of the UN is history making, and I remember that we here in Egypt did light the building of our
Yes.
Ministry of Foreign Affairs
Yes.
in commemoration of this dear moment. And also talking about the different issues that the UN has managed to address throughout the years, namely poverty. We talked a lot together about women empowerment. We talked about fighting injustice, climate change, and more than one pressing issue.
Yes, you have, the 17 goals that we call them. These are like the crux of the whole. Yeah, that's the whole idea of where we want to go. So the 17 goals, they start from poverty and they end with partnership and stability and what we call sustainability or sustaining peaceful societies. Those whole 17 goals are that would really is what's holding the humanity together. If we don't end poverty, we won't be able to see any advancement in digital development, let's say. If we don't work on education, we will not be able to see gender equality. If we don't work on SDG 3, which is health, we will not be able to see any of the other SDGs working, because health is really the main thing that we all need to be concentrating on to be able to achieve the rest of the goals.
Yes.
So I think it's all the 17 are interlinked. What is great about, like I said, these 17 goals that were set in 2015, and we are hoping to see them ending in 2030, like achieving them,
yes,
is that they were built based on the community. They wanted to hear the people. The previous goals, they were set by policymakers, but these ones, they really looked into the communities, the people who really matters. It was the heart these were the heart of the whole process of the development of these goals, the voice of the people. And this is why we believe that for us to achieve that, we need to be working on 3 levels. Like what we see now with the presidential elections in the US. Whoever the leaders the leader that will be chosen will be impacting or influencing the rest of the global leadership into more commitment, more financing, more, like you said, resources, innovative solutions. They in turn will be working at more of a local level, which is our own countries, where we want to put maybe some policies in place to lead us into this development. And then comes the last, which is, to me, is the most important, is the people, which is what we call the civil society, the youth, the women, those who really make the academia, all of these working together. So the 3 levels are very important if you want to reach the UN to be working together to reach the Sustainable Development Goals after 10 years.
Yes, talking your speciality or your baby, to let the people also get quite acquainted with what the different UN agencies work for, and how you find also challenges while working. However, you are determined to achieve the story as a successful one. In the region, and definitely talking about AIDS, fighting AIDS and combating AIDS, and once upon a time this has been like a breaking news story. Tell us more about in those 75 years. Of course, not your age, however, however, you have managed to achieve lots of milestones
Yes.
in that specific file.
Yeah, you know, what is maybe very, very pertinent to what I'm going to say is that UNAIDS is actually an organization or a program that's having all the UN agencies together. I don't know if we've shared this information before, but UNAIDS is made up of all the other UN
So all
agencies.
hands are on.
All hands on, because HIV, when it started in the 80s, when we knew about this virus coming, and this
That's
is
why
where
I was saying it was like the breaking news story.
Yes, and a lot of similarities really are between HIV and COVID, by the way. It's the same kind of attention that was given to it globally, and also the way that we are all not really alarmed at how we are moving with it. But for the 30 years the HIV has been there, all efforts of the UN agencies had to be coming together. We have 11 organizations within the UN working with us in the AIDS portfolio, because it's not just health, it's economic, it's educational, it's cultural, it's
collaboration.
It's a collaboration of all
those.
Same as what we see in the pandemic that we need to work. What we have achieved so far in the 30 years, and what at least I feel so proud of, is that at least we did not come to a vaccine for the HIV, we did not come to a cure, but we have treatment, and we're putting so many people on treatment. And now, if we want to say the gains that we have reached so far is amazing. We have so many people on treatment, and we are saying that we are going to be ending ending AIDS as a public health threat by 2030 as well, which is if the whole world come together and we work in the plan that we've put together for ourselves, it's going to be doable, hopefully.
Yes.
Even in this region. By the way, this might be the first region to do that, because with the little incidences, or let's say the number is small, but we might need to be doing more effort, because also we are increasing in the level of infection.
Yes. How can the layman in the street, how can ordinary people be aware of the stories that you're talking about? How can we help as ordinary people, the UN agencies, do their work professionally?
I think what has been happening, some schools are doing an amazing job with their students. I don't know if you...
sense of awareness.
Yes, they speak to them about these models of work. We have the UN model, which is a model
very interesting and a very famous model. Yeah.
Exactly. I think people talk to they need mothers and fathers. They need to talk to their children about what's happening in the world outside their little home. It's educating them to the humanitarian crises that are happening. Who is dealing with that? Who is dealing with what? Which organization is working with what? Specialities, because it's more of a specialized agencies as a UN, and people need to look at it beyond being, the layman would say, the UN. It's not the UN. It's really more than that. It's so many, and the UN does not work on its own. If it was just the UN working, we would never have achieved any of this. It's really the UN with partners, and the partners are usually the layman, the community. In my portfolio, it's definitely the community and the civil society. In other communities, it's the academia, it's the doctors, it's the media, it's the religious leaders. So I think
we need all partners hands-on.
Definitely, hands-on, and speaking to everybody. And what you're doing is amazing right now, bringing it to the light, that we really have this
very
behind
important.
us, and people
would know, and they need to know also the files that are being tackled. What are we working on? What are the objectives? How to do it right?
The opportunities, because it's also opportunities for work in the countries, in the where they are hosting these agencies, or where they are working with the governments on different portfolios. It's really opportunities as well that are coming to each country on its own.
Yes, Simone, let me talk to you also about encouraging this culture of volunteering. It's always very important to introduce this sense of culture and promote it, especially with our kids, because they are the implants when they grow up believing in this sense of volunteering, this culture of volunteering. Definitely there will be a difference.
Thank you, Tagreed. I'm really happy that you mentioned that. You know, I myself, when I was a kid, I volunteered in so many organizations, and I think this is what shaped the work I'm doing. And I see it in so many people I work with. Those who have started early, working with organizations, giving, they find it so easy to be doing this in their work. It comes natural. And to tell you the truth, most of the work, the development work, it's really based on volunteers. Maybe people are also not aware of that. They think, oh, these organizations, they take a lot of money, the NGOs, the non-governmental organizations working in the country. We have Risala, we might have Al-Urman, and I'm speaking
without mentioning
names. But I'm saying that these organizations, people might think they are taking money, but definitely there is a lot of volunteerism in part of the work that's being done. For example, in my work, I work with women living with HIV to promote the adherence to treatment and to get people to be speaking to one another, to know where to go for testing, where to go for treatment, and so on. They don't take money. They do it because they feel it's a responsibility for them. If I got infected, I need to protect that person next to me. So peer education as well is very important, and it's part of volunteerism, as we call it.
Yes.
We use the people who are closer to the community to be giving the message. So if you want to talk to youth, you work with youth to speak to other youth.
Yes.
You want to, so this peer education is very important. And I think with schools, our schools can start a huge campaign to do that. They can work with each, you know, I remember at one point, it's a small example, but it worked. You go to school, you give your child 2 sandwiches instead of 1.
Yeah.
1 sandwich would be collected every day and would be given to a certain orphan or something. It's little small things that we can do that would make this change the perception of the children that they need to give, they need to accept others as well.
Yes.
Because part of it is also the differences in others.
Yes, the acceptance of the other and the sense of giving and the culture of volunteering are all noble aims and noble causes that we're really happy to launch here through Nile TV International. And as Ms. Simone has said concerning the youth to youth, because usually the youth listen to their peers more than even the elders. I thank you very much, Simone, for coming to Nile TV, and we discussed the main headline and the breaking news concerning a very important election and a clarifying moment, a very big moment in America's history. Ms. Simone Salem, Regional Support Advisor, the UN AIDS MENA region. Thank you so much for coming, always adding value, Simone.
Thank you, Tagreed. Always a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you, my dear. And thank you, dear viewers, for joining us. That was Thursday Debate, and I'm Tagreed Hussein, thanking you all for watching.